For consideration of the bill is now open for discussion. I now call upon the members whose name have been received for participation in the discussion. Honorable Sri Sujit Kumar.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chairperson. Ma'am, I'm fortunate and I draw a lot of inspiration because you are in the chair most of the time I get to speak. I, on behalf of my party, Biju Janata Dal, support this bill, ma'am, because it's a very forward-looking bill. In fact, this is a subject which is very close to my heart, and I've often spoken in this August House about this during zero hour and during question hour. Now, let me explain, ma'am, what is the rationale behind this bill? Why was this bill brought in? The National Research Foundation Bill 2023 will replace the Science and Engineering Research Board Act of 2008 and subsume the Science and Engineering Research Board, SERB in short, into the National Research Foundation, NRF in short. Now the SERB Act of 2008 did a great job in laying the foundation of science and engineering in our country, but because of the limited mandate of the Act, the SERB, the board, could not suffice, and also it did not bring about a decisive change in the research and innovation ecosystem of our country. So the hope is that, ma'am, this bill, NRF 2023, will bring about an integrated and holistic change and in the research innovation ecosystem of our country. It will bring about a perceptible change in the innovation landscape of our country by tapping into universities, higher education, and the private sector. Ma'am, research is a very capital intensive business. So unless you bring in the private sector to support the research activities and the research ecosystem, I think you cannot have a world-class research. So this is why this is a very forward-looking bill, ma'am. Let me provide some context. Ma'am, today we spend less than 0.7% of our GDP on research. Comparable figures: Israel 4.8, South Korea 4.5, US 3.2 odd, China 2.5 odd. So we are really pathetic when it comes to spending on our research budget. On top of it, private sector spend on research is less than half, close to 40% in our country. Whereas for most of the OECD countries or for most of the top economies, it is anywhere between 70 to 80%. So I think, ma'am, that this bill hopefully will correct this situation. Now, ma'am, Honorable Prime Minister has articulated his vision that by 2047, at the end of the Amrit Kal, we are now celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. At the end of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the Amrit Kal 2047, when we will celebrate 100 years of our independence, we will become a developed nation, from being a developing country to a developed nation. Now, ma'am, we cannot become a developed nation unless we spend on research, unless we focus on technology, because technology will be the key driver of this transformation from being a developing to a developed nation. Secondly, Honorable Prime Minister has also shared his vision of making India a $1 trillion digital economy, which will be roughly 20% of our GDP when we become a $5 trillion economy. Again, without innovation, without R&D, can we become a $1 trillion digital economy? I'm so happy that Honorable Minister IT and Electronics, Ashwin Vaishnav ji, also is here. So, ma'am, give me just 2 more minutes. So, this is why it is very essential that R&D, which is the bedrock of scientific discoveries or technological innovation, is so essential if we are to tackle the challenges of our country, whether it's climate change or food insecurity or other things. Ma'am, just couple of issues which I would like to quickly highlight. One is the independence of the governing board. Though the NRF in the bill itself talks of independence and autonomy of the board, I hope that the government will follow it in letter and spirit. And that,
please conclude, your time
just,
is
ma'am,
over.
just one
Please,
more minute.
please.
And that clear and transparent criteria is laid out for selection of the scientists who will be part of the board. Secondly, there will be more focus on allocating sufficient fund to the state universities also, not just the IITs, not just the central universities, but state universities also get fund. And finally, ma'am, social research, social science, humanities is as essential as pure science. And this is why the governing board should consist of eminent social scientists as well. Ma'am, just 30 more seconds. Ma'am, technology will decide the geopolitics of our time. It will decide the destiny of nations. It's the new wealth, ma'am. Technology is the new wealth of nation. This is why the choice we make today as a nation, as to the direction of our research, direction of our technology, will decide whether we become a great power. Ma'am, I'll end by just saying one of my favorite quote. Ma'am, the single most factor which decides the intellectual, social, or economic progress of a nation or the well-being of its citizens is dependent on the creation and acquisition of knowledge. This is why this is a great bill, ma'am, and I support it. Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, Jai Vigyan, Jai Anusandhan.
Thank you. Mananya Ayodhya Rammi Reddy Allah.
For giving me the opportunity to talk on the Anusandhan.